Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in the mind of a man whose paintings might look, like pure color and chaos at first glance.
Wassily Kandinsky.
Exactly. But he was actually one of the most, rigorous, systematic thinkers of the modern era.
Absolutely. Kandinsky, living 1866 to 1944, he's rightly called a pioneer of pure abstraction in Western art.
But just calling him a painter kind of misses the mark, doesn't it?
It really does. He was an art theorist. He didn't just sort of stumble into non-objective painting. He codified it. He built this whole language for it.
A language.
Yeah, a complete rational, philosophical, even spiritual language, linking color, form, sound, and, well, the human soul.
Okay, so our mission today, for you listening, is to kind of give you the shortcut to understanding that language. We're going to trace his incredible journey.
From a successful law career, believe it or not.
Right, to becoming this artistic prophet who basically shattered, 3,000 years of tradition. The idea that painting had to show reality.
And the real kicker, the initial shock factor, is just how late he started.
30
years old. That's when he began his formal studies, life drawing, sketching, anatomy, the absolute basics.
Imagine the guts that took. I mean, that's usually when you're settled, right? Peak career time.
And he just throws it all away for the art world's uncertainty.
And that decision, and pretty much every radical move he made afterwards in his art, it was all driven by this one core idea he called
Inner necessity.
That's the key, isn't it? That's what we're digging into. This belief that art must come from inside, spiritual, emotional, not just copying what you see.
We need to watch how that idea pushed him, first out of law, and then, to completely reinvent painting itself. Okay, so to really grasp how huge that career change at 30 was, let's look at his life before art school.
He wasn't exactly a struggling artist type from the start.
Not at all. Born in Moscow, well-to-do family, very cultured, he took the most structured path you can imagine, law and economics, excelled at it.
And he was successful too, right? Lecturing.
Yeah, by 1892, he'd married his cousin, Anja Chimyakina, and was already lecturing in jurisprudence at the University of Moscow. A respected intellectual, set for life, you'd think.
But something else was pulling at him.
Always. This private, almost spiritual fascination with color. He talked about it starting way back in childhood, how certain colors just hit him differently, stimulated him.
So it wasn't just liking pretty colors, it was deeper.
Much deeper, almost mystical. And that connection, that became the engine, for his later theories about color symbolism and psychology.
Was there a specific moment when this really broke through?
Well, a big early crack in that structured life came during an ethnographic research trip in 1889. He was only 23. Went up to the Vologda region north of Moscow.
On academic business, studying law.
That was the mission, yeah, provincial law. But what really stayed with him was the visual experience, the houses, the churches there, decorated with these shimmering, vibrant colors.
Yeah.
He said it felt like he was literally moving into a painting.
Not just looking at it, but inside it. That's a key difference.
Exactly. And he noticed the folk art, those bright reds, yellows, blues, often against dark backgrounds, this visceral, sensory thing totally outside the academic world. It really hit him. You can see its influence on his early work.
But the real crisis moment, the one that points towards abstraction, that came later.
Yes, a few years later, just before he finally ditched Moscow for Munich in 1896, seeing Monet's haystacks.
Ah, the famous story. This is crucial for understanding abstraction, isn't it? Because it wasn't straightforward admiration.
Not at all. It was conflict. He went to an exhibition, saw the painting, the catalog says haystack, he looks, and he just cannot recognize the object.
Which, for his trained, logical mind...
It was a problem. His inner necessity back then, his intellectual side, screamed that the painter had no right to paint indistinctly. He felt actual pain, confusion, the object was missing.
His whole worldview challenged by a blurry painting.
But then, and this is the genius part, that other inner necessity, the emotional, spiritual one, took over. Despite the confusion, the painting gripped him emotionally.
It stuck with him.
Impressed itself ineradicably on my memory, he said. He suddenly saw the fairy tale power and splendor of painting itself, working independently of a clear subject.
So color and just the act of painting could move the soul on their own.
That was the revelation. If painting could do that without needing an object, then painting was inherently abstract, just like music.
Which leads directly to his ideas about synesthesia.
Immediately. He wrote those famous lines, "Color is the keyboard, the eyes are the harmony, the soul is the piano with many strings." The artist just plays the notes on this visual keyboard.
And he connected it beyond painting, too, Wagner.
Yes, he cited Wagner's opera Lohengrin. He felt Wagner was pushing music beyond just melody into this purely expressive emotional space. That was the final push, really, the intellectual and spiritual fuel he needed.
To finally ditch law and head to Munich in '96, to actually study art.
Right. So in Munich, he studied first at a private school in Ton Ashbys, then got into the Munich Academy. And this is where his personal life gets really intertwined with his art.
Gabriel Minter.
Yes, the German artist. He started as her teacher, but they became partners romantically and artistically from about 1902 to 1916. They traveled a lot, Europe, North Africa, soaking up all the new art movements.
And you can see him processing all this in his work from the early 1900s, right? Starting to break down reality.
Definitely. He's using these broad areas of color, moving away from fiddly details. Look at Sunday, Old Russia from 1904. It's this fanciful scene, peasants and nobles, but the color is already starting to dominate the forms.
And Couple on Horseback, 1907.
There you really see him experimenting. Using techniques like pointillism, those dots of color to flatten the picture plane, make it less about depth, more about the surface.
Plus the Fauvist influence. Wild colors.
Exactly. The colors are totally non-naturalistic. He's using color purely to express his inner feeling, his experience, not to accurately describe a horse or people.
Which brings us to a really pivotal piece.
Yeah.
The Blue Rider from 1903.
Ah, yes. Here the subject, a figure on a horse that's almost swallowed up by the way it's painted. The details are blurry, indistinct.
It's more about the colors, that intense blue especially, and the sense of movement.
And it's the intentional blurring, the disjunction. He's making you work, making you engage with the paint and color, not just recognize a story. It's not pure abstraction yet, but it's a huge step. He's clearly prioritizing expression over representation, setting the stage for everything that came next.
Okay, so by the late 1900s, Kandinsky's definitely choosing spiritual, emotional color over just painting what he sees. But he's an intellectual, right? He needs more than just feeling.
He needed to justify it, to prove this radical shift wasn't just, random splashing. So he dove deep into theory. And that theory was heavily shaped by spiritual movements.
Philosophy comes in here.
Vitally important.
Yeah.
He officially joined the Theosophical Society in 1909. Madame Blavatsky's writings were a huge influence.
What was the connection? What did Theosophy offer him?
Well, Theosophy proposed that creation itself wasn't random. It was structured, a geometric progression, starting with a single point, then unfolding into basic shapes, circles, triangles, squares.
So it gave him a framework.
Right.
If the spiritual world is built on geometry,
Then he could use geometry and color to tap into that spiritual truth, but without having to paint traditional religious scenes. It was a bridge.
and you see that geometry pop up later in his theories about shapes and lines.
Directly. And Theosophy even offered a kind of visual language. He looked at books like Thought Forms by Annie Besant and Leadbeater.
What were those?
They had these illustrations trying to visualize things like the human aura or emotional states as colorful, geometric, non-representational forms.
Like abstract diagrams of feelings?
Pretty much. And Kandinsky absorbed that. He translated those visuals of invisible states into his own developing abstract vocabulary.
But this kind of thinking, I imagine, didn't sit well with the mainstream art world back then.
Not at all. In 1911, his ideas were seen as way too radical. He actually split from the main Munich Artists Association, the Neue Künstlervereinigung München, after they rejected one of his increasingly abstract works.
So what did he do? Retreat?
Nope. Doubled down. He immediately got together with other like-minded artists. Franz Marc is the big name, along with Gabriel Minter, and founded Der Blaue Reiter, the Blue Rider group.
Named after his painting.
Exactly. It became the banner for the German avant-garde, pushing for this emotional, expressive, spiritual path towards abstraction.
And they were active. Exhibitions, publications.
Oh, yes. They put out the really influential Blue Rider Almanac, held 2 major exhibitions. They were making waves. But then
World War I.
World War I interrupted everything in 1914. Kandinsky, being Russian, had to go back to Moscow.
But the impact of that period, especially the Blue Rider, it wasn't just the paintings, was it? It was his writing.
Crucially, yes. Around 1910, he started writing what became his masterpiece of theory concerning the spiritual in art, published in 1911.
This was huge. A manifesto, really.
It was a defense, a promotion, a philosophical grounding for abstract art based on that idea of inner necessity, internal emotion.
What made it so revolutionary?
He laid out this rigorous argument that color and form could and should be used on their own, completely separate from describing the real world. It wasn't decoration, it was a spiritual need.
And people noticed.
Immediately. The international art world took note. Michael Sadleir published the English translation in 1914, which was massive for legitimizing abstract art in Britain and the US. Parts even showed up in Wyndham Lewis's Radical magazine blast.
So the book had a direct impact on collectors, too.
Absolutely. Sadleir's father, Michael Sadleir, actually bought several Kandinsky works in 1913, including an abstract piece, Fragment for Composition 7, some of the very first abstract Kandinskys to land in a major British collection, thanks to the book's influence.
This really elevates him beyond just being a painter. He saw himself differently, didn't he?
He really did. He saw himself almost as a prophet. He used this amazing metaphor in the book. The authentic artist, the one creating from inner necessity, stands alone at the very tip of an upward-moving pyramid.
What does the pyramid represent?
Art history, or maybe human consciousness. The base is like the common understanding of beauty. But the whole pyramid is constantly moving up, progressing into the future.
And the artist at the top is?
Making discoveries, seeing things others can't yet grasp. What seemed weird or inconceivable yesterday, like that Monet haystack he couldn't recognize, becomes normal today.
And what's avant-garde and confusing now?
Becomes tomorrow's common knowledge. Yeah. So the modern artist, for Kandinsky, had this almost moral duty to lead the way, to bring about that future reality.
That's a heavy responsibility. And you see that sense of drama, of being at a turning point in his big paintings from that time, the compositions.
Definitely. Especially the first 7 compositions leading up to World War I. He was obsessed with eschatology, end times, the coming of a new age, a massive spiritual shift.
So the themes are huge: apocalypse, rebirth.
Massive cosmic themes: destruction, creation, death, rebirth. He's drawing on huge biblical stories, Noah's Ark, the 4 horsemen, the resurrection, but translating them into this new, non-literal visual language. There's this feeling of urgency, chaos, cosmic events unfolding.
But crucially, they aren't illustrations of those stories. If you look at Composition 7 from 1913, maybe his most complex piece ever,
you won't find Noah or horses.
Right. It's this swirling storm of color and lines. He used what he called veiled imagery, hidden symbols, fragments of shapes, arches, not to tell a story, but as symbols, archetypes of that destruction-creation cycle he felt was happening right then.
He's painting the feeling of the apocalypse, the spiritual upheaval, not the event itself.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts here. How did he actually do this? How did he translate that huge spiritual vision into paint? The key seems to be his synesthesia.
Right, that crossing of the senses. Hearing colors, seeing sounds. He didn't just experience this, he built his theories around it.
He thought it was how art worked.
He believed it was the mechanism for communion between the artist and the viewer. The artist feels something that creates a sensation that becomes the artwork. The artwork then generates a sensation in you, the viewer, which hopefully triggers a similar emotion. It's a chain reaction.
And he got really specific about the connections, didn't he? The color-sound pairings.
Well, yeah, famously specific, and they really stick with you. Like yellow, for him, was the color of middle C played on a brassy trumpet.
Loud, sharp, aggressive.
Exactly. But other colors had totally different vibes. Red was like a tuba, maybe low brass, strong, heavy, earthy.
And green?
Green was quieter, more like a sustained violin note, restful still. Blue was the deepest, maybe a cello evoking coldness, the heavens, spirituality.
And black and white?
Black was the color of absolute closure, silence, the end. While white was the opposite, silence, but full of potential, like a pause before creation begins.
So when he combined colors, he wasn't just thinking visually.
He was thinking acoustically. He was composing chords. Color combinations produced vibrational frequencies, just like piano chords or cello chords, instruments he actually played as a kid.
Wow. And he didn't just keep this as notebooks, right? He actually put it into practice.
Massively so. The most famous example is probably his stage design for Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition. It premiered in Dessau in 1928.
That sounds incredible. What did he do?
It was like a living synesthetic manifesto. The shapes, the colors on the stage backdrops, lighting, they were all synchronized with the music, exactly following his detailed notes.
So as the music changed,
The colors and forms changed. When the pitch went up, maybe the colors shifted from deep blues and reds to bright yellows and whites. When the rhythm got frantic, the shapes might get sharper, more agitated. It was a moving, abstract landscape driven entirely by sound.
that perfectly illustrates the concept. But let's jump back a bit to 1913 to show how deep this sound connection went in his actual painting process. The story behind Composition 6.
Ah, the flood anecdote, yes. It really shows the power of sound over intellect for him.
He'd been working on this huge painting for months, right?
Yeah.
Trying to evoke flood, destruction, rebirth.
Made over 30 studies, sketches, really detailed preparations. But he was totally blocked, stuck.
Why? He knew what he wanted to paint.
He knew intellectually, yes, but he was trying too hard, trapped in the idea of the flood, trying to force the symbols. He couldn't access that inner necessity.
So how did he break through?
It was Gabriele Munter who suggested something radical. She told him, forget the meaning, forget the intellect, just repeat the German word Überflut Deluge, or flood over and over again, like a mantra.
Focusing on the sound.
Purely on the physical sound, the vibration of the word, not its meaning.
And it worked.
Amazingly, yes. The moment he let go of the concept and just immersed himself in the sound, that inner necessity unlocked. He stopped trying to illustrate and let the sound guide the paint. He finished that massive, complex, swirling canvas in just 3 days.
Incredible. It shows his abstraction wasn't just intellectual games. It was this deep, almost trance-like spiritual process accessed through sound.
But that very individualistic, spiritual approach, well, it was about to clash with the real world. World War I sends him back to Moscow in 1914.
And then the Russian Revolution happens.
Exactly. So from about 1918 to 1921, he gets heavily involved in the cultural politics of the new Soviet state.
Trying to shape the new art world.
Yeah, he collaborated on art education, museum reform. He even helped set up the Museum of the Culture of Painting he was trying to contribute.
But the Soviet climate wasn't really aligned with his ideas, was it?
Not really. The dominant movements emerging, like constructivism and productivism, they were all about utility, materialism. Art had to serve the state, serve industry, be practical.
And Kandinsky's focus on inner necessity, spirituality, individual expression.
It was completely out of step. It was seen as foreign, too bourgeois, too subjective, not useful for the collective. His spiritual outlook just didn't fit the argumentative materialism of Soviet society.
So he was sidelined.
Pretty much. His influence waned, opportunities dried up. So when Walter Gropius invited him in 1921 to come teach at the Bauhaus in Germany,
He took it.
gratefully, yes, it marked another huge shift, leaving the expressive, almost chaotic energy of pre-war Europe for the structured, theoretical world of the Bauhaus. So the Bauhaus era, starting for Kandinsky in 1922, this was incredibly important for him. The whole point of the Bauhaus was merging art, craft, technology.
Making modern design for the masses, essentially.
Right. And this structured theoretical environment was perfect for Kandinsky to really dig into and formalize those geometric ideas that had been floating around since his theosophy days.
And he wasn't just a minor figure there, was he?
Oh, no, he was central. He taught the basic design course for new students, advanced theory, painting workshops, even classes on form psychology. He really thrived on putting structure to his ideas.
And integrating geometry, points, lines, planes into his existing color theories.
Exactly. And this intense focus on formalizing everything led to his second big book, Point and Line to Plane, which came out in 1926.
What was in that one? More theory.
Yes, but incredibly detailed. It was like an academic treatise on form. He analyzed the psychological, emotional impact of different lines, angles, shapes.
Give us an example. Like, what's the feeling of a straight line?
Well, for Kandinsky, a horizontal line felt cold, passive, stable, heavy. But a vertical line that was warm, active, light, dynamic,
Kind of diagonal?
tension, speed. He was basically creating an emotional dictionary for every single geometric element.
It sounds almost scientific.
It was incredibly systematic, and interestingly, his research was happening at the same time as Gestalt psychologists were studying how our brains perceive and organize visual information. The Bauhaus was a real hub for that kind of thinking.
So he wasn't just making it up. He was grounding it in contemporary psychology.
Trying to, yes. And he also formalized the links between primary shapes and colors. The sharp triangle he linked with that aggressive color, yellow.
The square.
Stable intellectual square went with calm, flat red. and the circle.
Ah, the circle became really important for him at the Bauhaus, didn't it?
Hugely important. He saw the circle, no beginning, no end, as the most peaceful shape. And crucially, he felt it represented the human soul.
The soul, how so?
Like as a perfect, complete, self-contained form floating peacefully within the chaos of the universe.
And you see this shift reflected directly in his paintings from this time.
Mm.
More geometry.
Clearly, his style becomes much more precise, lots of circles, angles, straight lines, grids. A great example is Yellow, Red, Blue from 1925.
Big painting, right.
Huge, 2 meters wide. And it really shows how he's moved on from, say, the Russian constructivists, who were more focused on pure utility.
What's going on in it?
You've got the main elements, a big vertical yellow rectangle, this inclined red cross shape, and a large dark blue circle, those primary color shape pairings he theorized about.
But it's not just those three shades.
No, it's complex. They're set against this background filled with other things, winding black lines, little scattered circles, checkerboard patterns. It's not simple.
What's the effect?
It forces you to look deeper, as he said. It's not about just identifying yellow rectangle, blue circle. It's about feeling the tension and the harmony between all these different elements, the colors, the lines, the shapes, all interacting on the canvas.
And while he was deep in teaching and theory at the Bauhaus, he was still connected internationally.
Yes, he helped start another group, Die Blauvier, the Blue Four, in 1923.
With Klee and Feininger.
And Alexey von Jawlensky. This was mainly for promotion outside Germany, especially in the U.S. A dealer named Galkashire really championed them, bringing their European abstract art to America.
But this whole period of intense creativity and theoretical work at the Bauhaus, it was happening against a darkening political background in Germany.
Increasingly so. The rising right wing, and especially the Nazis, hated the Bauhaus. They saw it as degenerate, un-German, communist, Jewish, all their usual smears.
So the school was under pressure.
Constant pressure. It was forced to move first from Weimar to Dessau in 1925, then again to Berlin in 1932, trying to survive.
But they couldn't escape the Nazis.
Ultimately, no. After a massive smear campaign and direct government pressure from the Nazis who had taken power, the Bauhaus was finally forced to dissolve itself in July 1933.
And for Kandinsky and many others.
It meant exile. He had to leave Germany, which led him to France for the final chapter of his life.
So Kandinsky ends up in France, near Paris, in Neuilly-sur-Seine from 1934. And this starts his final period, right? The Great Synthesis.
That's what it's often called,
Yeah.
because he really starts integrating everything, the expressive color from his early Russian days, the spirituality from Theosophy, and the geometric rigor from the Bauhaus.
How did his style change in this final phase?
It softened again, in a way. He moved away from the really strict Bauhaus geometry and started using what are called biomorphic forms.
Biomorphic.
Meaning, like shapes derived from life, but not literal representations. They often look sort of like microscopic organisms or amoebas, embryos, tiny sea creatures, supple, curvy, non-geometric outlines.
What was he going for with those?
It seems like he was searching for universal life forms, the absolute basic building blocks of existence, almost like painting life seen under a microscope.
And the color.
The color compositions often consciously recalled Slavic folk art, those bright colors he loved from his youth, so a real fusion of his Russian roots and all his theoretical development.
And he used black differently too, didn't he?
Yes, black became very important, but not just as closure like in his earlier theory. He used it more as a deep cosmic background, a void, which made the bright biomorphic forms floating within it seem even more vibrant.
And he experimented with texture, adding sand.
Occasionally, yes. Mix sand with the paint to get this granularly, earthy, rustic texture, adding another physical dimension to the abstract space.
And his last major works come from this period.
His final two big compositions, Composition IX from 1936 with these strong diagonal lines pointing towards a kind of embryo shape in the center, and then Composition X in 1939.
What's that one like?
It's majestic, like fragments of stars or colorful filaments bursting and floating against this deep, infinite black background. It feels very cosmic. He actually became a French citizen that same year, 1939.
But even in France, he couldn't escape the shadow of the Nazis.
No, his work was prime target for them. It was prominently featured in that intimist, degenerate art exhibition they staged in 1937.
What did they show?
Various pieces, including a painting from 1916 called Zoyer Lairot, which is now considered lost. For the Nazis, his art, driven by inner necessity, was just proof of weakness, intellectual rot, degeneracy, and the physical destruction was devastating. When the Nazis raided the Bauhaus earlier, in the 30s,
They confiscated his work.
they confiscated his first 3 compositions. Think about that, the absolute pinnacles of his breakthrough into expressive abstraction, gone. They were later destroyed during World War II, an unbelievable loss for art history.
Just tragic.
Yeah.
But despite those losses, his importance today is undeniable, right? You just have to look at the art market.
Absolutely. His auction prices consistently reflect his status as a giant of modern art.
Any specific examples?
Well, back in 2012, one of his early expressionist studies, Study for Improvisation 8 from 1909, sold for $23 million.
Wow.
And more recently, 2016, a big Bauhaus-era abstract, Regie de Courbet from 1935, went for $23.3 million.
And that one has an interesting history, too.
It does. Solomon R. Guggenheim himself bought that painting directly from Kandinsky back in 1936. Shows that major collectors recognized his importance very early on.
But that connection to the pre-war and war era also brings complications, doesn't it? The issue of Nazi-looted art.
Yes, that's an unavoidable and important part of his legacy now. We have to look impartially at the claims that have emerged against museums holding works acquired during that period. It highlights the moral complexities.
Have there been significant cases involving Kandinsky's work?
There have. There was a claim against the Byler Foundation over Improvisation Number 10 related to its post-war history, which was eventually settled.
But the most high-profile one recently involved a painting called Painting with Houses.
Yes, that case got a lot of attention. The painting originally belonged to a Jewish family, the Loewensteins. It ended up with the city of Amsterdam in 1940, right after the Nazi occupation began.
And the family's heirs tried to get it back?
For years, there were legal battles. Court rulings initially allowed the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam to keep it, arguing it was hard to definitively prove it was a forced sale under duress.
But that changed.
Yes, the moral argument eventually won out. In 2021, the Amsterdam City Council revisited the case and decided to return the painting to the Loewenstein heirs. They acknowledged the impossible situation Jews faced under Nazi occupation and the moral weight attached to acquisitions from that time.
It's a powerful reminder that the history behind the art matters just as much as the art itself, or its price tag.
Absolutely. The market value doesn't erase the historical context. #TechCheckOutro.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on Kandinsky, I mean, the main takeaway seems pretty clear. He wasn't just splashing paint. He was like the chief architect of abstraction.
He really was. He fundamentally changed the game, didn't he? He proved that abstract art wasn't just about making pretty patterns. It was serious, spiritual, logical, all driven by that core idea.
Inner necessity.
Exactly.
And his life itself was just constant movement, geographically Russia, Germany, France. And artistically, Impressionism, Fauvism, Blue Rider Expressionism, Bauhaus geometry, that final synthesis.
It shows that listening to that inner voice, that inner necessity, it's maybe the toughest path, the most demanding critic you can have.
So let's go back one last time to his idea of the artist as a prophet, standing at the top of that pyramid, seeing the future.
Right. He predicted that what seemed inconceivable yesterday would become normal today.
And his work is proof that radical abstraction is now in every major museum, sells for millions. It became conceivable, even necessary. Yeah. So what does that mean for us looking around today?
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What revolutionary, maybe totally confusing abstract forms are being created right now, maybe in AI art or weird complex music or even theoretical physics that seem baffling today.
But might actually define how we understand beauty or truth a generation from now.
Exactly. What new kind of non-recognition like Kandinsky felt with Monet are you experiencing today? What confusing thing might turn out to be tomorrow's big revelation, tomorrow's splendor?
Something to definitely think about. Keep that question with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.